Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Spinning Back Clique, the show that takes you on a quick spin through the week's news. And on this week's show, we take a look back at the controversial events of UFC Fight Night 187. We look at how to deal with illegal knees, and we take a look at the landscape in the UFC's 155-pound division. But where else can we start, guys, but with the main event at UFC Fight Night 187, which ended in a no contest after an accidental eye poke by Leon Edwards. Belal Muhammad able to continue. Now, the sport of MMA continues to evolve and there's always changes and improvements, but the issue of eye pokes is something that the sport's never really been able to solve so far. So if you were in charge of the sport or right up there in your organization, what measures would you implement to help reduce the number of eye pokes in the sport? It's a bit of a tricky one to kick off. We'll do 3 minutes on the clock. And George, you can lead off.
You know, a few years ago, I remember Bellator and Everlast came out with a glove that had a little bit more of a curvature. I don't remember the grapplers complaining about it, saying that in any way it was affecting them, you know, or the strikers. Like, nobody had a complaint. And I remember Bellator would constantly say, hey, this past season, we only had like one serious eye poke incident. So I think something as simple as just the curvature in the glove could really, really set us forward, you know, in terms of not having to deal with these types of controversies. But what I'm seeing a lot of is these fighters that are retreating and keeping their distance. The only problem is the fingers are like this and not like that. And that's probably most of the problem, honestly, is that their fingers are still out there. Dare I say it's almost like a taunting tactic that some of them also use. Like, look what you might run into, you know, if it's not the right exchange on your behalf. So the gloves for sure is one thing, but I think these fighters need that warning a lot earlier. Make it a stern one this way.
Yeah, I agree with George on that one. The gloves, I mean, Trevor Whitman has some gloves that he came up with, and I think that would be a great idea because, of course, I think with eye pokes, it's a little bit difficult because a lot of fighters, like George said, will always try to gauge distance by sticking their hand out and stuff like that. So it just makes it a lot harder. I mean, I feel the first warning's got to be pretty stern. You can't really deduct a point right off the bat because it's too early, and sometimes it's hard to see how much damage has been done. But it's just, I feel like, you know, the warning has to be really stern. The talk backstage has to be really stern. And at the same time, like, just fighters have to be a lot more cautious with the way they fight, with sticking their hands out, because the whole eye poke thing, it's going to happen. It's pretty hard to control because it's always most likely inadvertent. So I think the glove thing is the most thing I'd focus on. How about you, Nolan?
Yeah, I mean, the glove is certainly a change that can come. But part of me, too, thinks that, what about point deductions? I mean, how many times can guys get warned that they have their fingers out, and then, like we saw on Saturday night's main event, it happens 2 seconds later and it's worse? And so for me, I think discipline, in terms of the referee disciplining the fighters in the fight, would put a halt to a lot of the fighters that extend their fingers. And then you can start having conversations about glove changes or whatever. See if the behavior can be changed first. See if it's a behavior issue. And then if it's not, if it's just something that's totally 110% unavoidable, then you can take it from there. But for me, it seems like a lot of these fighters are being warned multiple times. And so I think the referees aren't doing their best job of punishing these guys for, it's a foul. You know, I don't want to say it's cheating, but it's getting ahead. So for me, that's kind of what I'm thinking when it comes to this stuff. And sure would have helped, it sure would have helped the fight on Saturday night, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is a very, very tricky one to get a handle on. And speaking of that fight, guys, Leon Edwards, of course, headed into that fight. He was told that he could get a title shot if he put on an impressive enough performance. But now, after 20 months away from the sport, he's back in limbo once again. Belal Muhammad wants an instant rematch, quite understandably. Edwards, however, seems to be setting his sights a little bit harder than that and wants a title shot. So the question to you guys is, would it bother you if Edwards actually got his wish and was given the next title shot for his next assignment? And if it does bother you, who would you book him to face instead? We'll do 3 more minutes on lock, and Farah, you can lead off.
I don't know if I'd say it would bother me because I understand the frustration that Edwards is going through, almost 2 years away from the sport, and having his return pan out like that, because I know he's been angling for a title fight. But obviously, you got to feel for Belal as well. I mean, he stepped up when nobody else wanted to. He is a worthy contender. I mean, he's won 8 of his past 9, and for the fight to end that way, I know some people feel like Leon was winning that fight, but it was so early on in the fight. It's not like it happened in the 5th round or anything like that. So I feel like they should run it back. I mean, that's what I do. I just think if Belal, I mean, thankfully he said no permanent damage. I don't know how soon he's going to be able to return. I think that's the main factor in how fast Leon wants to get back in there. But Leon is in the upper echelon of the division. It's not going to be easy for him to find somebody that's just going to be willing to fight him next week or something like that, especially if he's talking about a title fight. So I'd say regardless, I think it's going to take a few weeks with Wonderboy on the shelf as well. If that would have been an option, Covington's going to be hard to negotiate with. So I say run things back with Belal. I think it's the right thing to do. How about you, Nolan?
Yeah, I think you make some good points there. For me, I think we all have a tremendous amount of respect for Belal to step into that situation that not a lot of people were wanting to step into. So mad props to him, and I don't think he should be punished. So at minimum, I think he should get a big fight next, whether it's Leon Edwards or someone else. But for me, I think Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington is the fight to make right now. I mean, talk about a clear-cut #1 contender fight. Seems like Usman Masvidal might still be the direction the UFC is going in. And for me, I think that why not have these other two play it out before then? It's a fight that can be a main event of a fight night. It can serve as a supporting act on a pay-per-view. I think that would be one that the fans could really be, get interested in. There's some bad blood there. There's some trash talk always associated with the Colby Covington fight. So as much as I respect Leon Edwards and I understand the frustration that he feels probably waiting all that time to fight and coming back and having that happen, I don't know if he didn't get a title shot going in to Saturday night, I don't know how he could have one coming out of it. I mean, it would just be kind of weird and leave a bad taste in my mouth for an eye poke to be the thing that somebody does before they step in the cage for a title fight.
We reached no conclusion on Saturday night. I mean, look, of course, Leon Edwards looked good, especially after that long comeback. But recently, didn't we see Maki Pitolo having his way with Julian Marquez? He comes back and wins it late. You want to go further than that? Want to go into the championship rounds? Jairzinho Rosenstruck and Alistair Overeem. Okay, how about another fight that ended early? Darren Till knocked down Masvidal, and they're in the first round of their fight. Masvidal comes back and wins. So we have to reach the conclusion of these fights. We can't just assume that so-and-so was on his way or anything like that. First choice would be to run it back, but if for some reason they can't, then look, it looks like Kamaru Usman is going to run it with Masvidal. How about Covington and Edwards? Can't let some man call you a bum. You got to do something about it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all pans out because it is a little bit of a mess. And speaking of it being a bit of a mess, it has been quite the week, guys, for illegal blows in the sport of MMA. We have Peter Yan with his illegal knee against Aljamain Sterling last weekend. Myself and Farah saw another big illegal knee during the Brave event on Thursday. And then we had, obviously, all the events that happened on Saturday at UFC Fight Night 187, including in the middleweight fight between Eric Anders and Darren Stewart, where Anders landed a big knee on the Brit, leaving Stewart unable to continue. Now, the question with regards to that is this. Do we need to change the rules around how illegal blows in general are dealt with in the sport? Give us your take on this. We'll do 3 minutes on the clock. We're a little bit different from the eye pokes. We're talking direct strikes that end fights prematurely. 3 minutes on the clock. And Nolan, you can lead us off.
Yeah, it is a different issue than the eye pokes. I think illegal knees, we've started to creep into a territory that I'm not sure the MMA world is ready for. I mean, we've seen Aljamain Sterling, Peter Yan go down one way. We saw Darren Stewart, Eric Anders go down a different way in terms of results, disqualification versus no contest. And I feel like up until this point, the rules have, to me, at least made a little bit of sense. But the fact that now it's in the public eye, it's being discussed, and it's seemingly like every time there's an illegal knee now, there's going to be this debate. I think we start we need some more groundwork. So I think Mark Ratner laid it out pretty well when he talked to the media on Saturday night, explaining the differences and why he thought both referees were correct. But I don't like the wording. I do not like the fact that they say intentional. Oh, it was intentional knee. Do we think Peter Yan intentionally, in a fight that he was winning, tried to knee Aljamain Sterling's face off? That's not what I think. I think careless is the word you need to use. So we need better language. and we need to have a better understanding of the determining factors in the referee's eyes that lead to these stoppages. When George, I've taken enough of the clock. What do you think, man?
Exactly. Just because you're negligent or ignorant to the rules altogether, or maybe because you've been hit a few times, it doesn't excuse you. Careless is a perfect word to be used, whether the intent was there or not. Imagine if Peter Yan was in the same position ahead, but fading, and he had just broken his hand or he was injured. What, all of a sudden he could deliver that knee and then claim, oh, my bad, didn't mean to. Let's go to the judges' scorecards. Oh, what do you know? I walk away with the title because we're now even after the 2-point deductions. You cannot do that. The fighters can adjust. They know the rules. I mean, these guys were on their knees for a while. There was nothing in question. They were on their knees longer than those EPL superstars that take a knee before the game. It was very, very blatant, and I think you have to do something about getting the disqualification done. Now, what can happen is the promotion can say, well, we realize what happened, but perhaps their stock doesn't go down as much because we believe the fighter privately. But as far as the winner or the loss, they have to be more concrete. Farah?
I know I have a few seconds, but I'm just going to say I feel like the referee needs to make a more definitive decision in the moment. Like, you just got to decide based on the body language of the fighter. He has to step in and kind of make a conclusive decision of whether the fighter can continue or not. I do like the idea of deducting 2 points right off the bat. There has to be severe consequences, but I also think the referees need to be a little more decisive, as opposed to kind of, I think Anthony Smith alluded to that, looking around and trying to get different opinions. And it kind of puts that fighter in a tough predicament where people are drawing conclusions of them acting or over-exaggerating or whatnot. I think it's pretty clear when you see that the fighter is visibly hurt and can't continue. And I think the referee needs to be a little more conclusive in his decision.
Yeah, absolutely. If you've just been blasted in the head, it shouldn't be you that decides whether you can continue or not. That needs to be done by the ref straight away, in my opinion. So we'll see how things develop over the coming weeks. And finally, guys, things are moving ahead in the UFC lightweight division with the news that Tony Ferguson and Beneil Dariush are set to take each other on at UFC 262. So if we lock that one in, and also just for the hell of it, throw in the trilogy fight between Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor, which seems to be well on the way to getting booked, that leaves the likes of Justin Gaethje, Michael Chandler, and Charles Oliveira still awaiting their next matchups. Tell us what you want to see from those guys moving forward versus what you think that we will see for those men in the weeks and months ahead. So it's a kind of a double matchmaking task to finish up. 3 more minutes on the clock. And George, you get first crack.
I'm going to make it a triple task. First of all, what takes so long to figure out if Khabib is retired or not? He says he's not. Let's respect it. He can always come back, but the UFC needs to figure out what they're going to do with the division going forward. Now, okay, it looks like Conor versus Dustin part 3 is going to happen. I would put Charlie Olives and Michael Chandler together. They're on the same timeline. They impressed on the same night. They should battle. And then as far as Justin Gaethje, I would probably look to have somebody like, I'm going to leave RDA and Islam alone, though maybe my colleagues might differ. But it sounds like that's also, being warm. The people are warm to that. So give me somebody like Felder or Kevin Lee against Justin Gaethje. I think that would be a nice way to get those guys on their little comeback trail after their recent losses. Farah, am I crazy? You like the matchmaking?
You're not crazy, but I'm gonna differ a little bit. I would like to see them push Islam Makhachev. I actually think he's with Khabib undecided if he's going to come back. It looks like he's not going to come back. Why not push Islam Makhachev? I mean, he's healthy now. He's coming off a very good win over Drew Dober. I think that's a great win. I mean, I'm very high on Drew Dober. Why not push him? I would like to see him in the mix. Now, with the 3 names that we threw in, I know Justin and Islam are managed both by Ali Abdelaziz, so I don't think they're going to be matched up together. So maybe if we do go Gaethje, Chandler, I mean, that's fireworks. Regardless what you do with those 3 guys, it's going to be a hell of a fight. But I wouldn't mind them pushing Islam Makhachev. I mean, he's healthy. He's got a big following around him. I mean, he's proven that the hype is real. And people want to know if he's that good. And if you want to know if he's that good, give him one of these top-ranked guys. I know I might be crazy and people would say he doesn't deserve it yet. But, hey, I want to see him in the mix. I think he's looked phenomenal. And I think he deserves a shot at a top-ranked contender. How about you, Nolan?
No, you're not crazy, Farah. And I think that Islam Makhachev deserves a big fight, whether it is against one of the names that is on this list or not. But for me, I mean, I would like to see Rafael Dos Anjos step up and fight Justin Gaethje. I think that would be a fight that you could promote. It would make a lot of sense. And then on the flip side, I think Michael Chandler versus Charles Oliveira is a fight that both the UFC is interested in and I'm interested in. So whenever we align, that fight needs to happen. So I think that that's definitely a fight that needs to occur. And then, like you said, you got the trilogy between Dustin and Conor. So I think that with those fights booked, the division should figure itself out, and we should have a clearer picture, at least on who should be in a title fight if the belt becomes vacant.
Yeah, there's so many great options at lightweight. My three would be Gaethje versus Chandler, Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev. Just give Islam that push. RDA versus Dan Hooker. They are my three. I'm sure you guys out there will have your own picks, but hopefully we will find out in the coming weeks what those matchups will actually be in reality. And that is all we have time for on this week's edition of the show. We've got a packed week of fights at MMA Junkie this week. We've got Brave Combat Federation on Thursday. We got One Championship on Friday. We've got KSW from Poland on Saturday. And of course, we'll be focusing on UFC on ESPN 21 all week long, fight week coverage from Las Vegas. Plus, I'll be on duty for 3 straight nights from here in the UK. Cage Warriors bringing their latest trilogy to UFC Fight Pass from London, England. So make sure you keep it right here with MMA Junkie, and we'll be back to unpack it all